India, China coming together will shake America, Global South to outweigh the West. Just imagine. One of the world's greatest powers, America, whose economy and military strength have dominated global politics for decades, suddenly feeling uneasy, finding itself in a position where the very rules it created begin to turn against it. This is the moment when the axis called the Global South rises rapidly, and the handshake between India and China becomes the biggest headache for America. It feels as though a new force is making its moves on the world's chessboard, and the old dominance of Western countries has begun to tremble. This is the suspense that is making America and its allies restless today. Today, we'll dive deep into this subject. But before we begin, if you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe so you receive the latest updates on all our videos first. So, let's start today's discussion without any delay. US President Donald Trump, by imposing heavy tariffs in recent times, thought he could put pressure on countries like India and China. His goal was to create divisions among BRICS and Global South nations, so that America could play them off against each other for its own interests. But this move now seems to be backfiring. The geopolitical turmoil after the COVID pandemic had already shaken many countries, and Trump's tariff policies have further forced these nations to unite and form a new axis. The coming together of India and China is the biggest sign of this changing era. This India-China partnership is set to boost the stature of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. What was once considered merely a platform for emerging economies now appears ready to challenge powerful groups like the G7. The real reason behind the West's unease is that the Global South is no longer just discussing its problems. It is preparing to play a decisive role in global governance, economic policies, and geopolitics. According to an NDTV report, the rise of the Global South marks a historic turning point. It brings back memories of the days when colonialism and imperialism weakened nations across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. But today, those same countries, once dismissed as the Third World, are moving forward to shape a new world order through their unity. Nations like India are playing a central role in this process, not only raising the voice of the Global South, but also acting as a bridge between the Global North and the South. The story of the term Global South itself is also fascinating. It was first used in 1969 by American political scientist 𝐼𝐸 Oglesby. It referred to those nations that belonged neither to the Western capitalist bloc nor to the Soviet Communist bloc. During the Cold War, these nations were labeled as the Third World, but in reality, they were societies struggling with poverty, inequality, lack of education, and poor healthcare, yet continuing to fight for their future. India and China may lie in the Northern Hemisphere, but they are still considered part of the Global South. This shows that the term is not about geography. It symbolizes economic and political inequalities. The group also includes Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, and many countries from Africa and Latin America. In recent decades, the strength of the Global South has been steadily rising. According to a World Bank report, by 2030, three of the world's four largest economies, India, China, and another, will belong to the Global South. Just imagine, the very countries once labeled as developing are now on the path to becoming the driving engines of the global economy. The combined GDP of BRICS has already surpassed that of the G7, and this is the biggest shock for Western nations. Platforms like the Voice of Global South Summit, India has amplified this group's voice on the global stage. Its initiative to include the African Union in the GBs is a major example of this effort. It demonstrates that India is not only thinking about itself, but about the Global South as a whole. This is why India is increasingly being seen as a trusted leader. So why is there such turmoil in Western countries? The first reason is the shift in economic power. For decades, the world economy was centered around the Atlantic region, but now it is moving toward the Asia Pacific. Emerging economies like India and China are disrupting the balance that had long remained in the hands of Western powers. The second reason is the geopolitical impact. Countries like India are no longer just rule followers, they're becoming rule makers. During its GB's presidency, India brought issues like food security, green energy, and climate finance to the forefront, proving that the priorities of the Global South are now part of global debates. The third reason is the challenge to Western policies. During the Russia-Ukraine war, many Global South countries refused to side with NATO. This was a major shock for the West, which expected the whole world to stand with them. But the Global South made it clear, it is no longer a blind follower, but a group with an independent voice. China's role is also crucial in this story. Its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, helped build infrastructure in many countries, but it also turned into a debt trap. Countries like Pakistan got caught in it and are now facing deep crisis. India, on the other hand, offered alternatives like the Global Development Compact, models seen as more transparent and trustworthy. This has further strengthened India's image and has begun balancing China's dominance. For Western nations, this situation is extremely complex. On one hand, they need India because it is trusted for its democratic values and reliable economic partnerships. On the other hand, the rising influence of the Global South makes them anxious. That is why there is so much unease in America today. Global South countries are now demanding reforms in global institutions that have been controlled by Western powers for decades. The United Nations Security Council, IMF, and World Bank all have long been tilted in favor of the West. But now, voices are rising for structural changes to ensure equal participation for all. Some countries have even started reducing their dependence on the US dollar. They have begun trading in yuan or other local currencies. This poses a direct threat to America's economic dominance. Western nations are realizing that if the Global South truly unites, even the supremacy of the dollar could be challenged. Another major reason is the West's indifference. On issues like climate change, Western countries often make promises but fail to fulfill them. The Global North is responsible for the highest emissions, but it is the Global South that suffers the most from the consequences. The same thing happened during the COVID pandemic. Western nations hoarded vaccines, while India built a reputation as a trustworthy partner by distributing free vaccines to many countries. This is why the Global South no longer wants to remain just a follower of rules. It now wants to become a rule maker. These countries demand greater participation, global discussions on their concerns, and priority.
It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every news story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources: news from various news agencies, opinion polls, and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.